Hey everyone, welcome back to Clover Knows Pets. I'm Clover. Welcome back to In a Pinch Hermit Crab and Exotics Rescue. I don't have much time, but today I'm just going to be going over what the different words mean on the rescue tanks. Because most of it seems basically nonsense. So yeah, if you didn't know, I run In a Pinch Hermit Crab Rescue, or Hermit Crab and Exotics Rescue in Bayport, Minnesota. We mostly take in surrendered hermit crabs, but occasionally I will do other animals, but only on an emergency basis. Anyways, basically what we do, what I do, is take in Hermes that no longer have homes or are sick or injured, rehab them if needed, otherwise just quarantine them, which is done in these bottom tanks. And then once they're done with quarantine and rehab, they move up to one of the two holding tanks. We've got a 60-gallon breeder here and a 40-gallon breeder there. By the way, if you're wondering, it's just called breeder because instead of being longer or taller, it's deeper. Yeah, you can't really breed hermit crabs readily these days. Anyways, yeah, they'll stay in what we call holding tanks until they find a new home. 4 days before they are picked up by that new home, they will go back into one of the quarantine tanks, and that way we can make sure that they are all above ground and ready to be picked up. And if any of them are molting or underground, we can alert the adopter at least 4 days prior to the adoption to make sure that they don't come and not get their Hermes. But yeah, anyways, let's get started. Alright, so the first thing you're going to notice is on the black rims of the tanks, we always have numbers. We've got 1, 2, 3, all the way through, and those are basically just the tank numbers. I do write a lot of things down in notebooks and also on Google Docs and such. Just things about all of my animals in general, not only the rescue, and so every single tank in the room has a number. That way I can just write down T1 is going to have 3 more Hermes in it this week, meaning tank 1. That way I know exactly where they are going to be in. So yeah, moving down, we've got this bit here, and this is just explaining how many Hermes we have in here and where they came from. Well, approximate. So first of all, it says 3, so there are 3 Hermes in here from a family of 3. So 3 Hermes came into the rescue, they came through quarantine and rehab, and then all 3 were placed into this tank. And you've got 2 family of 3, so 3 Hermes came in, all 3 were rehabbed, 2 were placed in here. And if you're wondering, the other was placed in here. And then we've got over here, we've got 23 came in. Yes, that's all from the same home, from the same tank. That's what family of means. Meaning the same person rehomed the Hermes at the same time and they were living in the same tank. Anyways, 23 were rehomed. They were all rehabbed and split up, and 2 came into this tank. Now, since this tank is sometimes a quarantine tank, depending on the amount of Hermes we are quarantining and their size, I do like to clarify holding tank. It's honestly, if I thought about it, I could remember very easily, but it's just nice to have on there. And then here we have, the H just stands for Hermes, and we have 7 total in here, because we've got the 3, 2, 2. So 7 Hermes in this tank. It's the same way on this setup. For the pickup tanks, basically just write the amount of Hermes that are in here and clarify that it is a pickup tank, and that's it. And for quarantine, I write down the amount, just like before, the total amount inside, and then I write down to confirm whether or not it's either quarantine or rehab, write down any important notes. For example, this is just quarantine. He is a healthy Hermes, and the tank he was kept in was very, very tall, and as you can see here, he's actually as high as he can get in the tank here, and so I just wrote down needs height. That way I can put that on the adoption form and have only somebody who has a very tall tank adopt them, because if they're used to that, it's best for a low-stress environment, like a tall tank, for them. But yeah, since this is only a quarantine tank, I'm not going to have him in here for more than a month. And so I just check off the days all the way up to a month. Also, if you're wondering, these are all paint markers and little bit of water on here, and they dissolve and wash off really, really quickly, which is why I love them so much. And they're a lot easier to see and less transparent than Expo markers or dry erase markers in general. But yeah, if this were to be a rehab tank, then I would still write down that, and then instead of quarantine, I would write down rehab. I'd write down any notes along with why they're in rehab. I'd still do the checklist for when quarantine's up, but they would have to stay in even after that. And so I continue checking off just to keep track of how long they're in the tank. Basically, how long their rehab process took. And then I'll also write down here, I will write any specific notes, like if for rehab I need to be doing anything particularly for them. And yeah, this tank here is currently empty. This is basically what the tanks look like if they aren't being used. Yeah, currently got a carrier in here, which is what these guys are going to go in pretty soon. Got some lids, got some pre-made substrate. Of course, I'll have to moisten it, but yeah. As for specialty rescues, such as Juniper the field mouse, obviously I can't do the exact same thing, and since it's not like the Hermes, it's not a general routine, and I'm normally having to treat something in particular. So yeah, just state the species, the amount, any names, if they have names, depending on the animal, of course. That is a quarantine tank. I actually should have rehab on there. I would normally have rehab on there if this were to be a pet, but this is actually a wild mouse, and so I'm counting it as a quarantine tank. Anyways, here you go, example of the specialty needs. I just wrote down terramycin daily for left eye. She has an eye infection on her left eye. Also, just so you know, they aren't always kept in 10 gallons like this. For example, we currently are treating, gosh, I don't know why I keep saying we. I do all the rehabbing and care for the animal and coordinating everything, and then my mom drives me places. Thank you, by the way, for doing that, but yeah, anyways. I'm currently treating a Chinese dwarf hamster, ironically also for a eye infection with terramycin. But she is being kept in a 20-gallon tall. That way she has room for proper bedding depth, sand bath, proper wheel, enrichment, all of that. And then some spiny mice that are up for adoption right now are being kept in this. Hey, babies. Good girl. This is basically a 20-gallon long, which is where all the hides and sand and water and burrowing and foraging is. And then a ladder to get up to this area, which is where all of the climbing and the wheel and water, second water dish is, and another hide. Also, this whole top removes, so I can get down to there. And there's a lid to get into here. So yeah, very customizable, which is very important when you never know what's going to end up at our door. So yeah, anyways, thanks for watching. See you next time. Don't forget to like and subscribe.